cockroaches. Motherfucking Freeman. Bad guy. You know? Come on, it's the cartel. Hey, Tony Martin. Tony Martin. Tony Martin. Tony Martin. Think about my ear. Tony Martin. Tony Martin. Tony Martin.
I'm about to cut the push. Oh, I'm hyped right now, baby. I am hyped right now. Like I'm overly hyped just to do this show. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how crazy I am about this coming Sunday, the NFC Championship game. San Francisco 49ers travel to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. I'm hyped. I'm stupid hyped right now. Like, this week is going by extremely slow. It's only Tuesday. And, yeah, it needs to hurry up. I'm so hyped, man. Before I get into that matchup, because I really want to spend as much time as I can on that, let's talk about how they got here. How they got to the NFC Championship game. And that's by going into Carolina and eventually beating the brakes off Carolina, dominating Carolina. And I had, coming into the game, I had all kind of respect for Carolina and what they accomplished on the season and what they brought to the table as a team. That defense is serious, and I didn't take it for granted not 1 second. However, I felt that the first game was not indicative of what we were going to see on Sunday. And Vernon and Crabtree not being there was big in the first game, and I thought that would change everything. It was going to make it a completely different team. And it looked like I was right. I said they would win by 10 to 14 points, end up winning 23-10. It was a great performance on the road in a tough environment by the Niners. Looking back at the game, just a couple of notes I took. In the first quarter, I thought the Niners moved the ball well, especially that opening drive. They got a couple of first downs. They got fortunate on a couple of plays, getting a couple of penalties that led to first downs. But I thought they did what they had to do to move the ball. Thought they did a good job. Once again, they got in the red zone or close to it and wasn't able to punch it in the end zone, settle for field goals, and it almost got them this time. Carolina's newness to the big stage, their debut in the big stage was really a huge factor in that first quarter, and it might have cost them the game. The fact that they mentally weren't prepared to handle a stage that big. I mean, you saw a lot of chippiness, personal fouls. You know what I mean? Whether they warranted or not, just putting yourself in that situation was something that they just shouldn't have been doing. And it showed the lack of maturity and lack of experience in the situation. Even in Cam's first drive, he had a couple of balls that I thought, were a little high. And I was saying it, the Olsen, he made a pass to Greg Olsen on third down, which I thought was a little high. Olsen went up and got it, but it showed to me that, he was a little excited. He was a little too amped up. That ball was floating. It was sailing on him a little bit. And sure enough, the very next pass was, a little too high and a little behind the receiver. Tip, Patrick Willis got the interception and a big turnover for the Niners. Once again, they couldn't capitalize with a touchdown. Now, one of the big things that happened in this game was it was real chippy. There's a lot of talking, and people have been getting on Anquan Bolden, Kaepernick, and a lot of the Niners guys for talking a lot in that game. Did anybody see Steve Smith in the first half? I mean, Steve Smith, you want to talk about somebody talking. Steve Smith was ridiculous in the first half, and I know that's what he always does, so maybe they give him a pass, or, because he was supposedly injured, or, he's a little guy or whatever, they give him a pass. Steve Smith was ridiculous. After every play he made, I mean, he's looking at the Niners sideline, he's in their face, he's flexing, he's yelling, he's doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, man. And if you ask me, if you look at the game, the Niners weren't doing too much of that at the beginning of the game. Anquan Bolden for sure wasn't doing too much of that. But then you had those guys, Mitchell and Captain, just getting in his face, Luke Kuechly, and it set him off. He said like this, he kind of reminded me of what I do, and it's like, look, man, I'm not here to talk, but if you want to talk, we can talk. You know what I mean? And don't get mad when I don't stop, because if you get me going, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to have no mercy on you. And that's what it looked like, what happened with Anquan. And once they got him going, well, like I said, he ain't going to stop. You know what I'm saying? So, look, I don't really care about the trash talking either way. Just back it up. You know what I mean? Just make sure that, you can back up the things that you're saying. Anquan definitely did that. And he didn't start it. Steve Smith started all that nonsense, and the Carolina defense started all that nonsense. So I don't really. People who getting mad at Anquan didn't watch the game, didn't pay attention to it. You know what I'm saying? He was brought out of that shell. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's something that stuck out to me. Steve Smith was running his mouth, but on the Carolina second and third drive, they had a lot to run their mouth about. It was getting a little scary because they moved the ball extremely easy on that second drive that they had, where they got stuffed at the goal line. And then they got the ball back on a good return from Ted Ginn Jr. And in one pass, Cam threw a phenomenal pass on first down to Steve Smith for the touchdown. Steve Smith couldn't have walked over, or excuse me, Cam Newton couldn't have walked over to where Steve Smith was and handed that ball better than what he threw that touchdown pass for. It was a phenomenal pass by Cam, and it had me. I was like, God damn, this is getting a little ridiculous. And then they had another drive after that where they moved the ball down the field again, and it kind of had me stressing. That second quarter had me stressing a lot. But just like the first goal line stand, oh man, the second one, both of the goal line stands were phenomenal. And I think they scared Riverboat Ron out of going for it the second time. I thought maybe he should have gone for it. If he was going to go for it the first time, he should have gone for it the second time. But I think he scared him. They scared him out of taking that chance and taking that opportunity to punch it in. And Ahmad Brooks and Navarro Bowman were phenomenals. Obviously, Brooks was all over the place, making plays at the goal line. Navarro Bowman on the second goal line stand, Cam made some kind of run or a sweep or something like that. I don't know if he was scrambling or whatever, but he cut up field at about the 5, and it looked like he had a clear lane to the end zone. And Navarro Bowman somehow came off a double team block and made a one-handed tackle of Cam. And not only did he tackle Cam, but normally when you see something like that, maybe they're able to fall forward a little bit. Bowman reached his left hand out, stopped him dead in his tracks. Like when he touched him, Cam fell straight down. It was an unbelievable play by Navarro Bowman, and just indicative of what that defense did on those goal-to-goal situations the entire day. It was phenomenal. After the first goal line stop, I just pointed it out. Cap got another one of those Eli breaks, as I like to call them. You guys know I like to call the Eli breaks, where sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, where you do something ridiculous and you just kind of get away with it and possibly leads you to a Super Bowl championship. There was a possible pick six with Cap throwing out of his own end zone. Could have been a pick six. Yeah, he got away with one. He got away with another one, just like he did in Green Bay. And you don't want to ever put yourself in them situations, but if you keep getting away with them somehow, some way, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to just say, hey, you got to be better and move on. You know what I'm saying? I'll take those Eli breaks. After that, though, the Niners, that drive before the half, phenomenal drive by Cap. Great job by Bolden. Crabtree had a great catch and then a great touchdown there at the end by Vernon Davis. I thought the Niners almost botched the clock management in that situation. You didn't want to give Carolina the ball back at all in that half, but it worked out, and that might have won the game. That drive right there. After Carolina put up that field goal to make it 10-6, the Niners had to drive and had to score at that moment. They couldn't go another drive without putting points on the board. And Cap went down the field 80 yards on what I think is a phenomenal defense, a top 3 defense in the league, and in their place, and put up a big touchdown drive, and that might have won the game for him. After that, going into the second half, Niners come out, get a 3-and-out on Cam, and then they march down the field again about 75 yards. Cap runs it in, and that was pretty much the game. His little read option out of the pistol, running it in. And then with one of the great celebrations, and I think it's great because I'm a 49er fan, obviously, so it was great for me. But it was one of the great celebrations and most creative celebrations I've seen in a while. Cap opens up the shirt like Superman, like Cam does, closes it back up, buttons it up, and Kaepernick's phenomenal. That took the heart of Carolina, Cam Newton in Carolina at that point. That was big time right there by Cap. And you know what that was? That was a little bit of a release, man. I know exactly where I was coming from with Cap, and I can relate to it. Not necessarily that I was in the pros or anything like that, but Cap is the type of guy who all throughout his whole life, has kind of been overlooked. Didn't get any kind of scholarship. Got one scholarship offer coming out of high school. After a great career in Nevada, nobody really talked about him being any kind of NFL prospect or being anybody in the draft that you would want to take a chance on. And he compared himself. I can just imagine himself growing up, comparing himself to all these other guys that are, All-Americans, high school All-Americans, and and collegiate stars, and comparing himself to a Cam Newton for his whole life, and saying, you know what, I'm trying to reach his status. I'm trying to chase him down. You know what I mean? I'm going to work hard every day because I'm looking at Cam Newton at the University of Auburn, and I'm trying to chase him down. I'm going to meet him one day, and I'm going to beat him, and I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm better. Now, is he better? I don't know. That's debatable. That's not what necessarily he was getting out. But that's what his mentality was coming into the game and doing these things. And it's a situation where, because I relate, because I used to do the same thing on a basketball court as I was trying to get better and better in high school and in college. You start comparing yourself and fighting these guys in your imagination. You know what I'm saying? And competing against them and competing to be better than them in your imagination. And I think that's exactly what Cap did. And Cap, for the past 9 years, has been building up to play against somebody like Cam Newton. And he got his chance, and he beat him, and it was a release of emotion. That wasn't just Sunday that he did that for. That wasn't just even the Week 10 matchup when people were Kaepernicking every time. People in Carolina were Kaepernicking every time they made a big play or they would sack him. That wasn't just for that. That was 9 years in the making, in my opinion. That was 9 years in the making. I know Cap's build because I can relate to it. That was 9 years in the making. He had been waiting 9 years to play somebody like Cam Newton and look at him in the face and outplay him and tell him I'm better than you. I feel Cap on that. I don't blame him one bit, and I know exactly where he's coming from. After that, like I said, the game was over. The Niners' defense in the second half was unbelievable. They were phenomenal. As good as Cam Newton was in the first half, and I told you how good I thought he was, he looked like he had never seen a football field in the second half. And that was due to what the Niners do on the defensive end and the type of adjustments Vic Fangio makes and my man, the defensive line coordinator, Tom Sula, makes at the half. They've been flawless with that almost all season, making the adjustments, seeing what the other team wants to do and where they want to go with it and shutting that down completely. And they did it again with Carolina. Phenomenal job by that defense. The game was really over after the Panthers made an 8-minute drive towards the end of the third quarter. And because of the 2 sacks, they got themselves at least in the field goal range, and then 2 back-to-back sacks on second and third down. Took them out of field goal range. It was basically a wasted trip. 8 minutes, no points. Game was over at that point. Niners ended up shoving the ball down their throats and physically dominating a Carolina Panthers defense that I'll be honest with you, I didn't think they would do it like that. I didn't think they'd physically dominate them on the ground the way they did in the second half. Phenomenal job in Carolina. Couldn't be more prouder than my team. And it got them to this point. The NFC Championship game in Seattle against the hated Seahawks. And they are the hated Seahawks. They're hated by a fan's perspective. Sports hate, of course. You guys know what I mean when I say hate. They're hated by a fan's perspective. And to be honest with you, these two franchises, they don't care too much for each other. The players on the field, they sure as hell don't care too much for each other. You don't hear this a lot, and you don't see this a lot in sports nowadays, where the rivalry a lot is in the fans a lot of the time. It's in the fans, the people who support the team. You don't see the players a whole lot be like, look, We're going to play on Sunday. They don't like them. They don't like us. And we don't like them. And we're going to see what happens. Leave it at that. You don't see nobody buddy on the field when these two teams play. This has been 16 months in the making. Since Seattle came to San Francisco last year, played a tough, hard-fought game and lost, and really felt like they were just as good as the 49ers, to the Sunday night game the week following the Niners' trip to New England, going into Seattle, and Seattle putting a beating on the 49ers. To week 2 this year, when the Niners, just trying to get their bearings, lost a closer than people remember game in week 2 and eventually got out of hand and lost that game in Seattle, was feeling real good about themselves. To week 14 this year, where the Niners finally had revenge on their minds and took the Seahawks really seriously as a rival, got their attention, and came out and won a close game in San Francisco, where they physically dominated the Seattle Seahawks in that second half of the game. It's all been leading to this moment. These are the two best teams in football, and they have been the two best teams in football for the last 16 months. Period. The Ravens beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. Yes, I understand. You play a 7-game series, the Niners probably beat them in 5 games. These are the two best teams in football. And with all due respect to Denver and New England, this is the Super Bowl, in my opinion. This is a major game. And I know all the struggles that the Niners have had in Seattle the last 2 times they played there. And I can tell you right now, I'm as confident as ever about this team going into Seattle on Sunday night with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. First things first. Here is the bottom line to Sunday night. Russell Wilson will have to play the game of his life on Sunday night to send the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Marshawn Lynch will not, and I repeat, will not beat the San Francisco 49ers. It ain't happening. The Niners are going to put everything into Russell Wilson's plate. The same Russell Wilson who hasn't had a good game in about 2 months. They're going to put it in his plate, and they're going to say, you know what? You beat us. And if you can beat us, we will tip our hat. We will congratulate you. Good luck in the Super Bowl. I don't think he can do it. Russell Wilson is a very good quarterback. He gets a pass on a lot of shit that goes on. Excuse me. They got me cursing here. I try not to curse on my podcast. They got me cursing. It's that type of week. Okay? He gets away with a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Having subpar games, not being very accurate, really not sitting in the pocket and making passes. If you notice, everything he does is rolling out. Teams are not letting him roll out the same way. They're making him stay in that pocket and have to make a pass and make an accurate pass. He has struggled with it for the last 2 months. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. New Orleans Saints, they're much improved on the defensive end. They're not the same defense last year, but they're not the San Francisco 49ers, who, with all due respect to Seattle and their secondary and their Legion of Boom and their Legion, I like to call them the Legion of Bitch-Assness, this is the best defense in football. The San Francisco 49ers have the best defense in football. And the reason why I say that is because they have no real holes. You may want to say the passing game, the secondary is a little bit of a hole. You're not going to beat the 49ers passing the ball 50 times a game. It's just not going to happen. You cannot run on the 49ers. They make you one-dimensional. And it always does. It always comes to bite whoever turns one-dimensional in the ass at some point in time. And because you can't run the football on the 49ers, they make you one-dimensional, and that comes to bite you in the ass every single time. Ask Matt Ryan. Ask Aaron Rodgers. Ask Carson Palmer. Ask Cam Newton. Ask all these guys that they try to put out there and be like, oh, well, he had a good game against the Niners and he passed the ball. It don't work like that. You become one-dimensional, we're going to get you eventually. It's a bend but don't break thing. We'll give you your yards, but we're going to get you at some point. I don't think Russell Wilson is capable of doing that. You cannot throw for 103 yards and expect to beat the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. You can't throw for 150 yards and expect to beat the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. I don't think he can pass for 200 yards and expect to beat the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. You're going to have to go 225 to 300 yards in the air to beat the Niners. That's how it's going to happen. You're going to need about, I see the Niners putting up 20. You're going to need 23. You're going to need at least 21, 23 to beat the Niners. And if you can do that, I will tip my hat to you, Russell Wilson. I will tip my hat to you, Seattle, and say, you won. You were the better team that night. On the flip side, with all due respect that I have for that Seahawks secondary, like I mentioned before, you can run on Seattle. You can get smash mouth on them. And I've seen it too many times. I saw it against Tampa Bay. I saw it when they played St. Louis. I saw it when they played against Arizona. I saw it when they played the Niners the second time. Then when they played the Niners the second time, let me be clear with you. The Niners smacked them in the mouth. They got real physical with them up front. Cap stayed clean for a lot of the game. Frank Gore ran for 117. They were more physical than the Seattle Seahawks. Period. They're bigger and they're more physical. The reason why things have gotten out of hand in Seattle the last couple of years is not because they're so super physical, Seattle is with the 49ers. They're a physical team, but they're not more physical. It's gotten out of hand because the Niners turning the ball over. They can't do that. They cannot turn. I know it's cliche, but this is extremely vital. They cannot turn the ball over on Sunday. Period. Okay? Period. If you take care of the football, if you let Frank Gore eat, if you let Kendall Hunter eat, Kaepernick, if you have lanes, if you take your 6-7 yards at a time, and you do that, the Niners will control that football game. It's as simple as that. They will control that football game. They got to take advantage of it, though. They're going to have their opportunities. They got to take advantage of it, and they got to take care of the football. Another thing that I like to factor into this game, and I usually don't like to use this, you know what I mean, because I don't think that it's as big as people try to make it. In this situation, I think it is big. There is no experience in this moment on Seattle's roster. None. They have nothing to prepare them for what they're about to face on Sunday, emotionally, physically, and mentally. No experience. And all I want to do as a 49er fan is I want to bring them into them deep waters of a championship game. This ain't week 2, mother lovers. I'm going to say the whole thing. This ain't week 2, motherfucker. This ain't week 14, motherfucker. This is the NFC championship game. This is a whole different motherfucking ball game. And what I want them to do is I want the Niners and Cap and Frank Gore and Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree and Vernon Davis and Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman and Vic Fangio. I want them to bring Seattle into them deep waters. I want them to bring them into that deep waters. This is pressure like nothing they ever felt before. Come into them deep waters of playoff football, please. And we're going to see what you do. You're either going to swim. You're either going to swim and you can handle the moment. I'll tip my hat to you. Or, as like a famous West Coast rapper likes to say, you come out to them deep waters and you ain't ready, well then, you bound to drizzle, homeboy. Real talk. You saw Carolina, they wasn't ready for them deep waters of playoff football. They was not ready, and they drizzled. I want to see Russell Wilson. I want to see Marshawn Lynch. I want to see Sherman, Earl Thomas, Chancellor, all you guys. I want to bring your punk asses out into them deep waters and see if you can swim. I don't think you can. I'll tell you a quick story why not. Look, in 2011, I thought the Niners were good enough to win the Super Bowl. I really think they were. I believed it. I believe it to this day. They were good enough to win the Super Bowl. They played the Giants in the NFC Championship game, and they had one reception to a receiver for 6 yards. That was Michael Crabtree's first time on that particular stage. That was, who else did they even have? That was Kyle Williams. You know what I'm saying? Moments like this bring out everything in people. You may have a Kyle Williams. Golden Tate, you may be like Kyle Williams. You may feel the pressure of the moment and feel like, I've got to do something extraordinary here because this pressure is a lot. Maybe you'll fumble the ball on a punt return. Russell Wilson, maybe you won't be able to complete a third down the way Alex Smith did in his first moment in that time. Pete Carroll, national championships are cool. This is the NFC championship game. Maybe you won't be able to dial up the right calls the way Greg Roman was in that NFC championship game the first time. The whole point being, the New York Giants had been there. They weren't fazed by the moment. They may not have been good enough, even though I think the Niners are better than the Seahawks. The Giants at the time may not have been better than the 49ers, but they knew mentally how to stay within themselves during that moment and not get out of themselves. They didn't make no mistakes. That's all they did. They didn't make any mistakes that day. They waited for the Niners to make mistakes, and they capitalized. I want to see if Seattle can come out to them deep waters. I want to see if they can come out to them deep waters. We gonna see, motherfucker. We gonna find out. We really gonna find out. After all that being said, I think the Niners are gonna go into Seattle. I think they're gonna handle business, and they're gonna go back to the Super Bowl, and they're gonna do it fairly comfortably. I got the Niners winning in this NFC Championship game in Seattle against the Seahawks, 20-10. And I'm telling you, this ain't no homer thing. I believe this. I believe this. The Niners are the better team. The Seahawks peaked on that Monday night when they played the Saints. The Niners are peaking now. They are at their best right now when you want to be. Russell Wilson isn't playing good enough. Marshawn Lynch will not go beast mode. And I don't know if they have the playmakers on the wide receiver position and the tight end position to beat a defense as good and as dominant as the 49ers defense. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. I can't wait. Hey, real talk. If there's any 49er personnel people listening right now, hey, y'all can put me on special teams. You can put me on the kickoff squad. You can put me on the Tony Montana squad. You can put me on the punt team because I'm ready to go out there and play. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I feel so good about this game. And I feel so good about the opportunity for the Niners to go back to the Super Bowl and finally get that 6th championship. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. I may have an impromptu show directly after the game on Sunday night. I hope all my 49er fans enjoy it. Let's all bond together. We've been doing it on Twitter and all the social medias for the past month. Let's continue to bond together. Bond together and tell somebody about this podcast. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You know what I mean? Enjoy this, 49er faithful. We're going to have a good time. Niner game. Red and gold blooded. Faithful. Quest for 6. We out of here, baby. Peace. Woo!
My word, the roaches. Everything we do, we put Versace on the sofa. The money got me geek, like I took a hit of coke. My